and welcome to another edition of the LampLighters podcast. This week it's just myself, Lauren Smith, filling in for my co-hosts Zachary Hampton and Jalen Corver, both of whom were unavailable again this week. So we're going to take a look, talk about the Vegas goaltending situation, the fact that the Arizona Coyotes finally got their first win, and just take a general look around the league and see how everyone is shaping up so far. So to start off, let's take a look at the Vegas Golden Knights. Their third goaltender of the season, Oscar Dansk, was injured in their second loss to the New York Islanders. So while I was very happy to see the Islanders get that win, unfortunately it came at the cost of Oscar Dansk getting hurt. They are now on to their fourth starting goalie in Maxime Lagacé, or Legacy, I've heard it said different ways. Kind of not the goalie you want for your next option. Over the course of his career from 2010 when he was in the QMJHL to now, he's only had 2 seasons that were technically three points where he's been above 90. One of those was in the AHL where he played 1 game in 2014-2015 with the Texas Stars. In Bakersfield of that same year, over the course of 13 games, he had a .915 save percentage. And in 2015-2016 with the Texas Stars in the AHL, over the course of 36 games, he had a .913. Since then, he hasn't gotten past the 8-8 mark, so not great numbers, especially not for your starting goaltender. But hopefully he'll be able to do well. And with that, they recalled, I believe during the actual Islanders game, they called up Dylan Ferguson on an emergency recall. He plays for the Kamloops Blazers. Again, not a great situation. The Kamloops Blazers are the bottom team in the WHL, and I believe Ferguson is currently sitting at around 33rd for save percentage within the league. Kamloops Blazers went, can't remember, I believe about 19 games or something without a win. Nope, sorry. They went 10 games without a win. So not a great situation there. He's thus far in 15-16 with the Kamloops Blazers, he had an .875. Last year did a bit better. 31 games, he had a .922. Granted, that's still not even half of the games in a WHL season. So we'll see how he does if he gets the chance to play in the NHL. But it's good for him because he gets the opportunity to be a starting goaltender, or as a backup goaltender, get his first NHL game in at 19. But we'll see. Vegas, it's the last goalie that they have under contract, so hopefully that works out for them, and hopefully they'll get some goalies back from injury soon. Also under the Vegas Golden Knights is the whole Vadim Chipichov situation. It looks like he's heading back to Russia, but the Golden Knights want both the $2 million signing bonus back, and I believe that they're looking for assurance that he won't go to another team. He either has to file for retirement in the NHL to be able to go back to the KHL, or he has to have his contract with Vegas terminated. And if he were to retire, the Golden Knights would retain his NHL rights, which is not something you'd want. However, if a team claims him at this point, they would still be on the hook for paying him, so I think $9 million over 2 years you wouldn't really want to deal with, and Vegas would be stuck paying the $2 million signing bonus. But at this point, they're seeking a guarantee from all the other NHL teams that they won't claim him if he goes on waivers. But that isn't for sure yet. And they may also look to get some sort of assurance from him that he won't go and sign with another team should he be released from his contract. If I'm him, either you get the $2 million back or I'll agree not to sign with another team. I don't think that they get both. Very weird story though. How a player goes from being worth $4.5 million to, yeah, he can walk away and we'll look at terminating his contract. You have to wonder how much work was really put into looking into this guy. Also, if that's an indication about how Vegas is managing its assets, maybe they mismanaged something there if they haven't really looked at him well enough to make that decision. But it'll be interesting to see how that continues. Also, the Arizona Coyotes finally got their first win of the season. It came against the Philadelphia Flyers. It was a 4-3 overtime victory. Interesting team to see. They've gone into the third period on more than one occasion with a lead. Just seem to blow any lead they have. For example, 2 nights ago with the win, they had a 2-0 lead, actually a 3-0 lead at one point, and in the last portion of the third period, gave up 3 goals. So they have to figure out what's going on in that third period, and try to stay on top of it going into it. But, finally they got that first win, so it's good to see for them, and hopefully they can continue to improve. Another team that started to see a bit more success are the Montreal Canadiens. They've won, 3 games, I believe, since our last podcast. They won against the Florida Panthers. That was their second win of the season. The New York Rangers, which I'm always happy to see the Rangers lose. It only helps the Islanders have a better chance at the playoffs. And the Ottawa Senators. They're currently on a 2-game winning streak right now. We'll see how all that continues. But with that, with the exception of that second win of the season, you're still not seeing great goaltending. Still not above 9-0 save percentage, and that's going to eventually bite you, especially on a team that realistically does rely very heavily on having a good goalie. But thus far, when they come out of the first or second period with a lead, they win the game. But also, if they're trailing after the first period, they have yet to win a game. So that first period kind of seems to make or break this team. Still doing pretty well for the Corsi. They have 456 shots for, 371 against. And then their Corsi for is 601 and 507 against. So almost 100-point spread. Seem to be doing alright, but I still don't know that they've really fixed what they need to fix. So it'll be interesting to watch how that develops. But realistically, I think that their solution will have to come from within that locker room, because really, with the exception of your big names like Carey Price or Max Pacioretty, I don't know that you really have anything that's worth bargaining. And again, interesting management of Alex Galchenyuk. He's kind of a player you'd like to see get away from that team. Maybe get a fresh start will help him, because really he hasn't been all that bad, but kind of start to question if it's something within that culture in Montreal that's just not fitting with him. And also, I know going back to last week, there were some allegations made by Mario Tremblay about Galchenyuk having issues with substance abuse in the past, having sought treatment for that. Um, of note, I believe at this point Galchenyuk still hasn't said anything, but I have a real issue with that. Regardless of if that's true or not, I think it is completely inappropriate for Tremblay to have said anything about it. It's not your place to say it, and he better be right if he has made that statement, because if he's wrong, you can really do a lot of damage to someone's life by making those allegations. But also, the reality is, if he sought help for these issues in the past, he's trying to better himself. And by behaving like this and making these comments, you may also see a decrease in players looking to get help when they're struggling with something, and it only seeks to promote a culture of shame in regards to asking for help and trying to get better. I don't think that it's the place for anyone to decide when that gets to come out, unless it is, for example, a Zach Cassian situation where what causes it is a very public thing. I don't think that that should ever have been something that Mark Tremblay decided to break. And it's not like Tremblay has ever coached Galchenyuk or anything. In fact, I believe he was the coach under whom Patrick Waugh decided to no longer be a part of the Montreal Canadiens. But at the end of the day, it's not appropriate. And I don't think that it's alright for that allegation to have been made. And the reality is that there's probably a lot of players who are involved in that, and while it can eventually cause an issue if they're on ice, at this point I don't think that it was relevant to the discussion of his play. The bigger issue with his play may be still coming back from an injury and figuring out that under a new coach, and really not being in that much of a position, I think, to succeed. But moving on from that, taking a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, interesting team to have watched. After a hot start to the season, they've now gone 5-5-0 in their last 10 games, and went on a 3-game losing streak, actually, which they finally broke last night with a 3-1 win over the Anaheim Ducks, with Patrick Marleau getting his, I believe, 100th career game-winning goal in the NHL, which is a pretty impressive feat to see. But yeah, you'd can definitely start to see some of the holes in their game. They're getting outshot quite frequently, and that can only lead to problems. Very often they're getting outshot in the first period, and while right now they're going with the score your way out of problems, long term that's not really gonna last. So interesting team to keep an eye on. Of course, with Mike Babcock as your head coach and players like Austin Matthews and William Nylander, you always have the possibility of doing well, but it's definitely strange considering that it's a strange situation that they've put themselves in with making the playoffs last year, where really you should still be kind of taking the time to rebuild and build up these young guys, where now it's all about making the playoffs and getting that push, which may work short term, but it'll be interesting to see the long-term impact on their rebuild, having this almost kind of half rebuild, half not, where it seems to be a little bit more focused on wins as opposed to player development and developing, strong defensive forwards and stuff like that. So we'll see how it works out for them in the long term. But as of right now, they're still sitting second in their division. So I guess they may not be too worried, but definitely looking at their last few games and going into this next game against the Kings, who are always a tough opponent. Going into that game against the Kings tonight, it'll be interesting to see if they can move forward and definitely get back into the winning column and stay there. Um, Another team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, continue to be one of the hottest teams in the league, with an 8-1-1 record for their last 10 games. Their most recent win being an 8-5 win against the Florida Panthers, who are a team that is just not having a great start to the season. Currently, the Panthers are sitting 8th in the league, right ahead of the Montreal Canadiens, with only 4 wins in 11 games. Definitely not a great start for them, considering the fact that a few years ago they were making the playoffs a couple years in a row, making it to losing to the Islanders in the first round, but definitely looked like they were a team on the up and up, and just haven't seemed to be able to get together over the last couple of years. Then, of course, there's my personal favorite, the New York Islanders, who are currently doing the best of our 3 teams, with Zach's Montreal Canadiens sitting 28th in the league. The Flames for Jalen are 20th, and my Islanders are currently 9th in the league, even though, they weren't a good choice for a dark horse pick, but thus far they've been pretty consistent. Definitely helped out a lot by Halak returning to form and giving us solid goaltending. With only, I believe, 2 or 3 games below 900 or below a 90 save percentage. Definitely a solid start to the season. Haven't lost a game when they've led after the first or second period. And just recently came out with a 6-3 win against the Vegas Golden Knights in that game, where unfortunately we saw Oscar Dance getting hurt. But definitely a good win for the Islanders. Still sitting pretty good in the league. They're currently in the first wildcard position, but that's just because the Metropolitan is such a strong division. But they're only 1 point behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, so wouldn't take much for them to get back into the top 3. Still early though, but we're about just over an eighth of the way through the season, so we're hitting that American Thanksgiving mark pretty soon here, where it starts to definitely get harder to win your way back as the season progresses. We'll see how teams like the Habs and the Rangers do. I think that most people have kind of written off your Buffalo Sabres and definitely the Arizona Coyotes. Edmonton Oilers really not living up to the hype after last year, but I think that's a team where they kind of, they couldn't stay as bad as they were forever. They may have, made it to the top quicker than was to be expected, considering how bad they were for such a long time. And, you can't go more than a couple years without a number 1 pick for the Edmonton Oilers, so it may just be time for them to come out with another one and see how that works out for them. Although they have to compete against the Arizona Coyotes for the worst team in the league, which will definitely be more difficult. But taking a look quickly at the top teams in the league and what games they have coming up next. The Tampa Bay Lightning next play the New York Rangers. That is happening tonight on November 2nd. The Rangers are currently one of the lower teams in the league. Haven't been looking that great lately. Their last 10 have been 3-5-2. They managed to pull out a win against the Vegas Golden Knights, but as mentioned, the Golden Knights have had a lot of issues with goaltenders this season, so Maxime Lagasse's first full start in the NHL. To pull out that win um, was quite lucky for them. Uh, Actually, going into the third, the Vegas Golden Knights seemed to do their best Arizona Coyote impression. They had a 4-2 lead going into the third, and the Rangers came back to win it 6-4 with only 11 shots for the Rangers, so definitely dropped the ball there in the second. But we'll see how the Tampa Bay Lightning will fare against them. And then we have the St. Louis Blues, who will be taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. They are currently in the second wildcard spot for the Eastern Division. And the Flyers have a 4-5-1 record over their last few games. They're on a 1-game losing streak. And their most recent loss was to the Chicago Blackhawks, who, strong team, never really want to take them on. The Flyers are currently sitting 17th in the league. And then the LA Kings will be again taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. The Kings have a 7-2-1 record. They're on a 1-game losing streak right now. But strong team going up against a team that's been struggling lately, so we'll see how they come out of that game. The New Jersey Devils will be going up against the just snake-bitten Edmonton Oilers. So, see how they come out of that game. Definitely not a team that anyone expected to be doing as well as they are this year, but good for them. Hopefully that'll last. They're on a 8-2-0 streak right now with over their last 10. They're on a 3-game winning streak at this point, with their most recent 3 wins coming against the Ottawa Senators, Arizona Coyotes, and Vancouver Canucks. So Senators were definitely one of the hot teams so far. So that was a big win for the New Jersey Devils. That Arizona win, I mean, Arizona seems to be a team where you can just walk in and get a win this year, so it counts for 2 points, but definitely nothing to write home about. And then the Vancouver Canucks, never really know what's going on with them. And next you have the Pittsburgh Penguins. They'll be in Calgary. They're 6-4-0 in their last 10 with a 1-game winning streak, taking on the 20th placed Calgary Flames, who have a 5-5-0 record for the last 10 with a 1-game winning streak. Over the course of the season, the Calgary Flames have been 2-4-0 at home, and the Pittsburgh Penguins have been 4-5-0 on the road. So, see, both teams are kind of in weak areas, but hopefully the Flames can come up with that win. And always good when you can see a metropolitan team lose, and I'm sure Jay would be happy to see the Flames get a win. Vegas Golden Knights will be taking on the Boston Bruins in Boston. They have a 7-3-0 record over their last 10 games. Of course, they're currently on a 2-game losing streak after that road trip through New York and losing Oscar Dansk. Hopefully they can do well. Again, interesting given their goalie situation. We'll see if they can pull out of it. But the Boston Bruins are currently sitting in 22nd place with a 4-3-3. They've lost their last 2 games in overtime. At home, they have a 3-1-2 record, while the Vegas Golden Knights have a 2-2 record on the road. So it'll be kind of a battle to see, if the Vegas Golden Knights can continue to do well with Maxime Lagasse as their starting goaltender, and if they can survive until they get one of Marc-Andre Fleury, Malcolm Subban, or Oscar Dansk back. Next up is the 7th place Columbus Blue Jackets. They'll be taking on the Florida Panthers. Florida, again, not off to a great start this season. They are currently sitting 27th in the league. The Blue Jackets are 7-3-0 in their last 10 on a 1-game winning streak. On the road, they have a 3-2-0 record, while the Panthers have a 3-2-1 record at home. Columbus Blue Jackets definitely have been a solid team so far this year. Bobrovsky seems to be continuing his strong start from last year, and so far hasn't seemed to cool off. Still, I find him to be questionable for his consistency, but thus far over the last couple of years, he seems to have maintained that pretty well. Next is the 8th place Toronto Maple Leafs, again taking on the LA Kings. After that is the 9th place my New York Islanders. They have a 6-3-1 record over the last 10 games. They're on a 2-game winning streak, but they're going up against the Washington Capitals, who, while they haven't had as solid a start to the season as usual, they're currently sitting in 23rd place. You can never underestimate those guys. They're on the Washington Capitals are currently 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. They're on a 1-game losing streak. That loss coming against the Calgary Flames. So thus far, haven't had the strongest of seasons. On the road, they are currently 4-3-1, which is actually better than their home record. But the Islanders are 4-0-1 at home. So again, I'm hoping that the Islanders can come away with a win from this game, and continue to improve this year. I don't believe that the New York Islanders will have Pellichin. It looks like he's out with an injury. So Thomas Hickey will be back in for the Islanders. Halak is in net again, which, given his start to the season, that's to be expected. He's been pretty good so far. Solid player, so I have no issues with that. Seems to be pretty good for them. So we'll see, but of course, it's the Washington Capitals. Alex Ovechkin, Braden Holtby. Can never count them out of a game, and it would be arrogant to dismiss them that quickly. And then the final team in the top 10 are the Ottawa Senators. They have a 5-2-3 record over their last 10. They're on a 1-game losing streak going into their next game against the Detroit Red Wings, who are currently sitting 18th in the league, with a 5-4-1 record in their last 10 games, a 2-game winning streak. Of course, with their last 2 wins coming against the Florida Panthers and the Arizona Coyotes. So while they're 2 weaker teams, coming in off of winning streaks, a lot better than the Ottawa Senators coming in off of that 3-8 loss to the Montreal Canadiens. The Senators are on a 1-game losing streak currently. But of course, either that 3-8 loss is going to be something that they find detrimental and hard to come back from, or they may also take that as a bit of a wake-up call and could be coming back harder than what they were before and working harder. So that'll be an interesting game to see play out when they match up. But that's your rundown, and that's it for this week's edition of the LampLighters podcast. Hopefully, the 3 of us will be back together again, but we're all quite busy right now. So on behalf of Zachary Hampton and Jalen Corver, who can be here for this podcast, have a good week, and don't forget to light that lamp.